Hello, here we are once again with Mookie Tenembaum. We are, as you know, trying to understand disillusionist philosophy through these videos, trying to get into the misalgic theory that explains human behavior as aversion to suffering. And month after month, for years already now, we've been trying to illustrate some of the abstract concepts in Mookie's system of thought with facts from everyday life, with aspects of our daily matters. We've covered news even, we discussed events in the COVID-19 pandemic, we've discussed events in the Russian invasion of the Ukraine. And today we are going to take advantage of the fact that Mookie is actually in Japan visiting. So we are going to take advantage of that and try to understand Japan from a disillusionist point of view, which will mean illustrating some of the concepts of disillusionism with the extraordinary example of Japanese culture.
Well, yes. First of all, let's say let's get something very out from the tape. There is no Japan. Japan is an illusion. There is no Japan. There is no Russia. There is no God. There is no family. If tomorrow, and the test is the amnesia test. If tomorrow you have an attack of amnesia, there will be no Japan. There will be people that look very, very different from me, all quite homogeneous. Yes, you will see a very organized city and everything clean, but the word Japan is only happening in our minds, and it doesn't really exist as a disillusionist. But the issue is that the individuals, those that we call Japanese, do exist, and they exist in a very, very unusual setting. You see, and this goes directly to the heart of sleepwalking. You see, let me remind everybody, we sleepwalk most of the day. That means it's instead of sleeping, we are sleepwalking. The difference, one of the main difference is that you can see somebody sleeping and you can recognize him sleeping. You cannot recognize him sleepwalking. The whole idea is that sleepwalking is really undercurrent. It happens, but nobody notices it. And you think people have intentions on what they do, and they don't, of course. And the whole idea is that if everybody sleepwalks, and I can sleepwalk myself, and we don't wake up each other. There is a tacit agreement, Florencio, you agree with me, that I don't wake you up and you don't wake me up. Now, when you go to a place like Japan, sleepwalking is so different that is evident. So we can really analyze each one of that sleepwalking, because it is so different from us. And they say, oh well, all the Japanese are sleepwalking. I think if you ask anybody in the States or in Europe, and we talk about sleepwalking, I said, do you agree with me that with sleepwalk, some people will, some people will not, but definitely everybody, I will agree that the Japanese sleepwalk. Why? Because they look like that. Because that's. And what we're seeing is a different way of sleepwalking. The content of sleepwalking is different. The issue itself, no. We sleepwalk exactly like a Japanese, just we do it in a different way. As a lawyer sleepwalks differently from a doctor, yes, and a cook from a taxi driver. Everybody sleepwalks in their own life, but when you are with them, you don't notice their sleepwalking, nor they will notice, and you can even talk and exchange conversations that are all under the sleepwalk umbrella, yes, to call it somehow. So the main difference of sleepwalking in Japan, Florencio, is how profound it is, how all-encompassing it is. There is every detail. You see, being Japanese is like being religious. Everything every little thing is being taken care of. So if in Judaism, for example, you have to fast, you're not supposed to drink or to eat, but you cannot wash your teeth, and you cannot do it until the sundown, and before the sundown, and after the 3 stars, and you have to sit in this chair, but not in the other chair. This is about how, for example, Yom Kippur, the day of fasting, is being managed. The same happens, but instead of being a religion, it's the way of life in Japan. It's a religion. It's not in the faith part of it, but really in the ongoing, how it on goes. What do you say about this, Lorenzo?
I like the idea of seeing matters in everyday life almost as a ritual. Of course, it's a rite with no myth behind it. The mystical part is missing, but still, it does look like a ritual. I got caught in what you said about how easy it is for us to see the automatism and the ritualistic behavior in others, and it's difficult to detect it in ourselves. But I wanted to ask you, I think beyond sleepwalking, beyond the individual components of this culture you're describing, about the way in which they synchronize with each other, because I guess this is something that has always also puzzled outsiders. This is my first impression, at least from Japan, how well coordinated the different sleepwalks are between them. So there's something to say, I'm sure, also at the sync level, at the synchronizing level of this individual sleepwalker.
Well, it's interesting because sleepwalk is always synchronized. Sleepwalk in Argentina or in the United States is always synchronized. In Japan, it is obviously synchronized. Now, it's an interesting way because the society is very homogeneous. That means physically they look quite the same, all of them. Of course, we have a bias as Westerns. We see them all very, they think the same. They look at them. For them, every white people looks about the same. But beyond that, they have a language which is a very logical, very well-made language with 5 vowels, very different from anything in Orient. It's a very organized. Even the language is extremely organized. So how they interact with each other is all following very, very rigid rules. Everything, every interaction, everything you do from the moment you wake up, but not you, from the moment you are a child, everything has a right. Everything has a right, and here is a pun. Yes, right, R-I-T-E, and being right and doing it the right way, R-I-G-H-T. It's right. Everything has to be right, and that's the reason I say it reminds you of a religion, and that means that incredibly enough, any person can really do a job, even the most intellectually challenged people will find a place in this society. They have to do 2, 3 little things, and that's it. That means everybody will have a very square job to do. So if you take that job, that is what that person is supposed to do all day long. Yes, the people will tell them they are robots. They are not robots. They are just people, like in a religion, following very strict rules. And those strict rules are so well connected that they have this fantastic thing. When you drive, when you walk in the streets in Tokyo, one of the most incredible things is silence. And it's not only silence because the cars are silent. They're not electric. It's not, mind you, it's not like electric cars. They are just silent. People do not stop on violently. The traffic lights have many cycles in which you see a red light and then it tells you that's going to change and you have enough time to do this, and everything is very perfect. And traffic could be full. You don't see almost any queues with cars. Of course, sometimes they do, like everywhere else. But it's just amazingly, and the quiet has to do with people's silence. The government in Japan told people, we recommend you to use the mask. Mask was never compulsory in Japan, never, ever. They just recommended, so everybody uses a mask. Now, a few weeks ago, they told them, you can take off your mask when you are in the street. Nobody did. Everybody keeps the mask on. That means they don't want to change. They are very change averse. They really don't want to change unless they're going to something to change. I think the best way to talk about it is surprises. Yes, There are two kinds of surprises. The real ones, ones that you're not prepared to, yes. And then there are the real surprises, for example, going to see a magician. Yes, that surprise. The Japanese are, when they are surprised, they're surprised of the second kind. Yes, it's already organized that they're going to be surprised. And in fact, they make a face of surprise. It's a story. Jimmy Carter was visiting Japan many years ago. And at some point, he told that he was addressing a crowd here. And there was a translator, yes, an interpreter. He was translating everything he said. And then he tells a joke. And then everybody just exploded in a laughter. And when it finished, the Jimmy Carter asked the interpreter, listen, this is the first time I told the joke is not that good. What happened? So somebody told him that the interpreter say, Mr. Jimmy Carter has just told a joke. Please laugh. Okay? and so it is, and it's people who I found with a lot of sense of humor. You don't expect from a robot to have a sense of humor. They do have sense of humor. They're very, very infantile. Everything is very childish. Please, Florencio, tell me what you think about all this. I keep on piling on facts.
Yeah, but as you were describing them, the idea that kept coming to my mind is the idea of a choreography. It is as if everything was somehow choreographed. But my question is, what happens when this rigid choreography fails? How do they react to an interruption of the sleepwalk and the synchronization? Because what you describe to me seems amazing at some level, but also very fragile. That's what concerns me also in this description you're making.
Well, we have to differentiate between the individual breakdown or the collective breakdown. And the individual part, well, it's very simple. You ask somebody a question that he is not supposed to answer, that he doesn't have, that is exactly his question, and they collapse. They collapse. They start looking at the telephone. First of all, they start looking at the telephone. Then, if you are asking them for directions, they're going to take you always to a train station because they are not prepared. They don't know. They don't know what is the name of the other street because street has no names. Only the main avenues have names in Tokyo. Streets are, alleys. It really has no names. There is some buildings names, and that's it. And people don't know. And people don't speak English. This is very important. In Japan, people don't speak English. Even those who speak English don't really speak English. they have a group of questions and answers that they can answer. And if you don't exactly spell what you are saying it in the accent they're accustomed to, they will tell you, we speak English because that's how they speak. Okay, it's very funny, but that's for them it is English. We have a problem that we call it English. It's really English here. I told you they are childish. They are extremely nice, very, very, very nice, and they are and this is on an individual level, and it's a problem individually. On a collective level, then you have the story of Fukushima. Fukushima was, people who don't remember, during the tsunami of 2005, the atomic center, the atomic reactor in Fukushima collapsed because of the water that came in, and the Japanese couldn't do anything about it. They were not prepared for it. There was nothing. They were never taught about it. So more and more people died trying to take out the water, the radioactive water, because nobody knew what they were doing. And every day, it's a public company called TEPCO, and all the directors just stood before people, and they just bowed and asked for forgiveness. Forgiveness is a very central issue, because when things don't work, there is always that flexibility of forgiveness. Somebody, if a train comes late, everybody will say, we're very sorry that you are late. In fact, they will give you a certificate so you can show to your boss that it wasn't your fault. And they expect you to forgive them. It's a forgiving and forgiveness. This is, I would say, the buffer zone in which even individuals can move. Now, you have to understand that the rigidity of the system has two problems. One is 43% of males never had sex until the age of 40. and that is there is the natality rate, the birth rate is disastrous. It's collapsing. Almost there are almost no new children, and in fact you don't see that many children in Tokyo. Yes, when you see a mother with 2 children, it looks like something very very important, very big. So that's that. There is a problem with that, and the whole individual part is that there is a breakdown apparently. Why? Because you see, normally when you have in this society, the 3 things that you can see is that the government's advice, which really is an order, yes, is limiting people a lot, and to that you add the discretion. They don't talk. They don't talk. And during the pandemic, they told them, don't talk because it could be contagious behavior. So people never talk too much. Now they don't talk at all. Yes, everybody's with. I've seen people eating with the mask, taking down the mask, eating, and putting the mask up. And we're talking about levels of fear. Yes, but the most important thing is inhibition. People are inhibited. And when I mean inhibited, it means they are afraid of talking with people. They don't do anything, and so there is again another buffer that allows them that's to get drunk. When they get inebriated, then they start talking, and it happens to me that you go in the street and suddenly in Japanese who never talk to you come to you and say hello, how are you, where are you from? Even 2 or 3 or 5 people, they're all drunk. Yes, and they get drunk very easily because their microbiome in the stomach is not the same as ours, and they're much sensitive to alcohol than us. So they get drunk, and then they get a release by doing it. There is a release in there, and there is another thing that I wanted to add. Today I was in the elevator, and a guy looked at me and says, "You very heavy," and I say, "Yes, I am." How many kilos? And I didn't answer. I gave him an answer. Not it's not for you. No, not for our public. But and he says, "Wow, they are childish. It's cute the way they ask you. If that question would have been asked in France, it would be offensive.
Very rude. Very rude.
Very rude. Here, please.
We are past our time. Is fascinating, and I'm sure we could go on with the anecdotes. But as you were speaking, I think we covered illusions, we covered sleepwalking, we covered seeing fundamental concepts in the system. I wanted to ask you about misalgia. What would you say is the suffering they run away from? What's the main suffering after the description you've made?
The suffering they avert, and it's obviously shame. It's not guilt. Yes, it's not hunger. In Africa, it would be hunger. This is shame. Shame is there. It's of course nobody talks about it because it's shameful even to talk about it. But shame is the worst. So they will do. They respond very much to shame. That's the rest of the thing works. There is really nothing else that doesn't work. But shame is a disaster. Shame is what motivates everybody of them. And the last thing you want to do to a Japanese is put him into shame.
To shame. No.
That would be so cruel because they are defenseless. It's really cruelty to subject somebody to even to a little bit of shame. You should always obviate the mistakes, accept the apologies without even accepting them. You should not say, I accept your apologies. That is shameful. You just look somewhere, you ignore it. That's how you do it. There is one thing a question that may arise. If everything is so equal, so perfect, yes, how is it that they have great artists or great philosophers, or of course, great architects or fantastic engineering? The answer is that very few people who, being a screw, instead of just being a screw, a flower comes out. And they will start going up, and unless, because in a communist country, they would
be stumped. Yeah.
They will be stumped. Here, no. Here it is it is merit, but it's not merit of hard work. Hard work, everybody is hardworking. It's merit out of creativity or a different thought. And you see a lot of people dress, cosplay. There is a lot of that creativity being encouraged, I would say. Yeah, it's encouraging the society.
That's not shamed. Interesting.
Let me tell you one more thing before we go. Every toilet in this city, and that includes parks, are spotless. And they are spotless not because somebody cleans them. It's because the person who uses it, the last, cleans it by himself for the next person. That is brilliant. That works fantastically. But you have to be raised that way. Yes, cleaning toilets. I don't see people cleaning toilets in New York, in Milano, or even in Switzerland. Yes, let's be.
Thank you, Mookie. See you next time.
See you next time. Bye.
If you enjoyed the video, please like it, comment and subscribe.